Today we're going to talk about the motion offense, an offense that was mostly developed by Bob Knight, a Hall of Fame coach who coached at Indiana University to 3 national championships, won the Olympics, and later coached at Texas Tech University. The important part of this offense is it's going to get you the best shot available, and that hopefully is a layup. We want our players to get a layup. If you have a fast break, we want you to go down the floor as fast as you can and get a layup opportunity. If you can work for a layup through setting screens, that's the best shot available that you can possibly get. Each player has their own shooting range and shot selection. That's determined in practice mostly, and games, but the shots that they make consistently, we want them to get those shots consistently within the offense, and this offense allows players to do that. This offense is designed to keep the ball in our hands. We want the ball in our possession as long as possible. This frustrates the defense. They want possession of the ball, they want to score, but the longer the ball is in our hands, the longer we're going to have, the better chance we're going to have of frustrating them and keeping the score lower. And that's an important aspect of the motion offense. We want to frustrate the other team so they don't have possession of the ball and they can't score. The motion will also allow for us to move, and when we're moving and constantly moving, which is a very important part of the offense, with purpose, you're going to see the defense wear down. It's very easy to guard a player at the top of the key, dribbling the ball, trying to penetrate into the paint, toss off to another player who does the same thing. Very easy to defend. While we're running our motion, it's going to be hard to defend, and it's going to wear down the defense, which should allow for more opportunities for mistakes for the defense, which will get us open shots. So that's what the main purpose of the motion offense is. This offense is predicated on 4 things. The first is constant movement. That movement has to be with purpose. We want our players to move based on their positioning on the floor. When they see that there's something available to them, they're going to take advantage of that and set the proper screen, but not just run through the motions, not just run by each other or just move around in circles. That movement has to be constant. If you're standing for 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, you're not doing something wrong after that point. You need to start doing something. You need to receive a screen, set a screen, cut, do something new. So the first part is of this whole aspect of the offense is constant movement with purpose. The next is spacing. We want to make sure that the players are 15 to 18 feet away from each other at all times unless they're setting screens. We want them to keep space at all times so not one defender can guard 2 players. If you're close, 1 defender can guard 2 players. If you're spread out, you're going to have a lot better opportunity of 1 player not being able to guard 2. And you're also going to set yourself up for better angles for screening. The third is communication. We want our players to talk. We want them to say, I'm setting a screen, this screen. I'm setting a down screen. I'm setting a cross screen. They need to say that to their teammates so that their teammate is aware of it. We also use the fist, a cue that tells the player, I'm setting a screen for you. You need to cut off the screen to this way because this fist is up. You've got to cut off the other way because the screen here is being set this way. So that communication is very important. The last thing is creativity. We want our players to be creative. We don't want to be predictable for our opponents. We want them to not know what's going to happen next. Heck, we won't know what's going to happen next because it's going to be something new all the time. We don't want to set a pattern offense. We don't want to set something, the same screen all the time. We want to make things very creative and new and fresh so that the opponent will never catch on to what we're doing. And it's also going to fake them out because if you can set a screen and then deviate, you're going to find some opportunities there. So it's really important that we're creative, we're communicating, we have the proper spacing, that we're out there and we're constantly moving. That's going to be the keys to this offense, and we're going to start with teaching a little bit about cuts and then the screens that they can use. The main aspects of any offense, in my opinion, is one, shot selection. Players shooting shots that are in their range that are good for them and at the right time for the team. Number two, handle the ball with few mistakes. Making sure you don't turn the ball over, pass fakes, bounce passes. Taking care of it with few turnovers. That's going to be an important aspect. The third area is movement without the ball. That's you flashing and cutting. That's going to be you evacuating an area so another player can fill. The last area is help each other get open, and that's the screen setting that we're going to talk about. Players need to help each other out by setting screens and then reading screens. And that's going to be a very important aspect of the offense, is reading those screens. And the best way to get open is to set a screen yourself. That's important. If you set a screen, you're most likely going to be the one that gets open. The best way to get open is to set a screen for someone else and then move to an open area, which you'll see as we develop this offense. The first thing we want to talk about is angles. Whenever a player is going to set up a screen or make a cut, he should face the key. That means his face and shoulders should always face the key. When he makes a cut, he needs to make a low cut or a high cut. So for instance, he could take his man lower and then cut high. Or he could take his man higher and then cut low. But as we see with this diagonal line, he is squared to the paint and then he cuts high, then low, or low, and then high. This can be done on a back cut or off the use of a screen. Now, where's the bat? The first screen we're going to talk about is the down screen, and it's based on angles and positioning. When a down screen is set, the angle is a player up high and a player outside. When we set the screen, we want to make sure that the screener sets the screen with his back to the ball. So if the ball is here, he's going to set a screen at an angle where his back is pointing to the ball. The other player, the cutter, is going to cut off the screen and he is going to come towards the ball. And we are going to make several reads based on how his defender plays him. But in general rules, when a player sets a down screen, his back is to the ball. When screens occur, reading has to occur. So when a player sets a screen, number one, he sets it with his fist up and he's screaming down screen, telling his cutter that he's going to be setting that screen. His fist up will tell the direction of where he wants the cutter to go. If he wants the cutter to go right, he'll put up his right fist. If he wants him to go left, he'll put up the left fist. Let's say that the defender here is going to not move off of this screen. So as this player brings his player in, he's not going to move. The down screen takes place with his back pointing to the ball. And this offensive cutter reads, my defensive man did not move. So he just goes straight up to the elbow and looks for a 15-foot jump shot. Okay, let's do it again. The next read is if the defensive player decides to follow and go to the outside of the screen. Once again, the ball is here, the down screen occurs, and this defensive player decides to follow him in this direction. He sets his man up, he starts to cut, he sees that this player is following him, and he immediately curls and trails, recognizes the trail and cuts to the basket. The next read could be that this defender fights to the inside of the screen, which is fairly safe to do when you are on the help side position. This player sets the down screen as this player brings his man in. This defensive player decides to go to the inside of the screen. Well, this offensive player, he needs to first come up and get to see that this player is going actually to the inside of the screen. If he does not come up, this defensive player will not move. He will just stay where he is. He sets him up as this player goes up inside this screen. He will then flare out and look for a skip pass. This player will pivot and re-screen. So this defensive player cannot get out to him. As you can see with most screens, the player's back will be pointing to the direction where he wants the offensive cutter to go. The next read would be the player would fight over the top of the screen. This defensive player, as he's being brought in, recognizes that the screen is coming. He's not in help side position as the ball is over here. And he sees that he is going to try to get over the top of this screen. So he bellies up with this player. He's going to put his chest to the chest of the offensive player. And he's going to try to get over the top of that screen, put his foot, which in this case would be his right foot, over the screener's foot and just go through. So this player would then go this way. He's going to take him high, and then this player will reposition himself to screen, and then this player will back cut and use a back screen, which we will talk about later. So there is a re-screen in this situation. If he bellies up, he's going to take his man higher and then use a re-screen. There has to be communication here. There has to be people talking and telling him what's going on, and the fist has to be up telling the direction, but there has to be a lot of court awareness when this read is made. The last read we're going to talk about is if they switch. These two defenders are going to be in a position where they're going to switch this down screen. As this player comes in, this player sets the screen here, and this player is expecting this player right here to come up, and he's going to switch and guard him. At the same time, this player is knowing that he's going to try to pick up the guy that just set the screen on. So there's a couple different reads that we can make off of this. The first is this, to confuse the defense. This player here will go, and as he's going down, he will slip the screen, thus confusing this player as well as this player. This player here could then fill a vacant area. He could flare out to see what's available from there, or just go to an open area where the defense is confused. The second read that can be made when a switch occurs is that this player, as he's coming down and setting the screen, again, this player is expected to come up. He could simply just backdoor cut, confusing this defensive player. So when you read that they have a switch going on, you're going to have to look at slipping and flaring. You always want to slip and flare. If this player were to come out here to try to defend, this player would then flash to the ball or an open area, depending on what he sees. A lot of times they could even flare out here again to the three-point line. Let's go. Hey, Johnson. Hey, Johnson. Switch. The next screen we're going to talk about is a back screen. And this is where the positioning is different. A player is outside and a player is inside. In this case scenario, when a player sets the screener is going to set his back to the basket, not to the ball. He's going to read what the defensive player is doing on this offensive player. This player is playing low. So the ball is here. He's playing off. He's not in a denial. He's more in a containing position. So if the player is below, this player is going to take his man lower. Always take your man lower if your man is guarding you lower. So you take him lower, this player will then come across, put his fist up, and we will cut off this back screen. If this player recognizes that this man is in full denial, he's going to be again facing the paint, and he's going to make a cut, and he's going to take his man higher on this scenario. So he wants to make sure that he takes him up here in this position towards the ball and bring the defender with him. Now the screen will be set on the opposite side, and the player will come here, and this player will cut off for that form of back screen. So all these back screens are read based on whether the defensive player here is going to be playing below in a containing position or high in a pressure situation. And the reads have to be that this offensive player must take his man higher or lower, and this player must set the correct screen based on the positioning of the defense. With this screen, called the side flare screen, we utilize quite a bit. It's very effective. In this scenario, the positioning of the players is we have two players out, similar to what we've seen with the screeners in the down screen position. When this screener sets the screen, he's going to set his back either to the sideline here or to this low corner. This player is going to cut to the basket like he is attacking, while this player comes and sets this screen with his back to the sideline. This player then reads off the screen, pulls back out, and now we have an opportunity maybe for a three or a pass and then a shot fake and then attack to the basket, but this player gets open this way. This player will then make a read on what the defender does. He could backdoor cut here to the paint, or flash to the ball, depending on what the defender does. But this is the side flare screen. The next screen we're going to talk about is a cross screen. In this scenario, this player is above the box. He's going to count 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000 at most. And he's going to recognize he can't get the post. So he's going to now set a cross screen. A cross screen is any kind of screen that is set across the paint. That screen could be a back screen, a cross screen, a down screen, back cross screen, any one of those types of screens. So in this scenario, he's going to go straight across. One thing we want to do is not have this player too close to the paint. He needs to set his man up and pull him out. As this player goes and sets the screen, he wants to set the screen at an angle. He wants to see and again read what this defensive player is doing. If the defensive player is playing low, he's going to come across and set the cross screen at this angle where this player's pulled him out and then now come across this screen. Very effective, which has to make the defense, in my opinion, switch in this scenario. He could also read that the player is high on him. In that scenario, this player would again take his man out, take him higher, and then we would set the screen at this kind of an angle where he would cut low on this screen. Depending on what type of defense you're going to read, you're going to see that a lot of times a player will be in help side. And in that case scenario, this player is going to have to almost create and find this man based on the help side position. And he can determine which angle he's going to set the screen at. So he can come up high, set this screen at an angle, and then the cross screen occurs. This player will then cut to the most open area. He could flash high or low depending on where this player cuts. Cross screens can be set at many different angles. You can see that a cross screen could occur here where the player is at the high post and then sets this screen here, and this player again is going to take his man lower. We set the screen, he cuts up high for that screen, and then this player could cut low depending on what's available. So that is another angle. Uncommon, if you have someone that can alley-oop, you could set a cross screen opposite the ball, and this player will then look for the alley-oop or an over-the-top pass for a shot. Anytime a screen is set across the paint, that would be considered a cross screen. One of the main concepts that we've talked about is screening. But as we've said before, screening is important because the screener is the one that mostly gets open. So when a down screen occurs, we want this screen to happen and this cutter to make his read, whatever read that may be. And then this player here, usually on a down screen, when again the ball is in this position and the screener is setting the screen with his back to the ball, we want to look to seal off a man, to slip cut and cut to the basket. Any open area is fine, but that's the usual area that you will find for again,
screening and then moving right after you set the screen. The best way to get open is to set a screen for someone else. On a back screen, this player again makes a cut high. This player cuts here in back screens, and we flare out or go to the basket. This player usually will find an open area to the ball, flashing to the ball, screen, and then come to the ball. Or he might see an open cut to the basket. So again, it's flashing to the open area that's very important. Another area we would like to see, again, with the roll, is this player cuts in on the side flare screen. This player comes and sets a screen. This player flares out. Let's say we pass him the ball. We want this player to post possibly, or slip to the basket. We don't want you to stand after you set a screen. Set the screen, hold it, and then move somewhere. On cross screens, we'll see commonly that you set the screen, this player steps out some, giving the player the defense and tries to draw him out. Come across, I post. Let's say the ball is here. 1-1000, 2-1000, 3-1000, cuts across, sets the screen. This player cuts low. This player, he should look to seal or flash up here to the high post. You want to move continually after you've set a screen. It's very important that we screen and then move, because the best way to get open is to set a screen. One screen we use a lot that's called a scoring screen, which is based on the screens that we've already taught you, but is looking for a score, is that we want to set a screen, what we call a UCLA screen, at the elbow. This player then cuts off the screen, and then this player makes a read to the flare or to where an open area is. We don't want the ball to be here at the top. If you're a point guard, we want you to recognize that the ball has to be passed here to the wing so that the entry pass is effective. But this is called a UCLA screen. Another screen we'll use is called an up-the-gut screen, where the point guard will pass the ball to a side and then we'll make a cut, and then we will have this player come and set a screen here at the top, and then this player cuts through. The third screen we could utilize is called a flex screen, where this player comes here and is ready to set a screen for a guard who cuts off here on the baseline. That would be called a flex screen.
Flex, flex, flex.
Another screen we could use is called a horizontal screen, where this player here sets a screen. He could come down and set this screen for a player to cut across here to the baseline. Could be a very dangerous screen in a lot of ways, because we're sending a player to the corner where he could be trapped, and we really want to set this screen where a player is ready for a shot and ready to shoot from the outside. It's always dangerous to send a player away from the basket. In this case scenario, we're doing that But this could be very effective for a shooter, a 15-foot range shooter, or a three-point shooter. But we utilize that from time to time. A lot of times we'll find that defensive players will get used to what we're doing, and we want to change things up some. So what we'll do is called a rescreen. And a rescreen has been very effective at getting players open and confusing the defense. So what we do here in this screen is, again, the down screen takes place, and this player comes and sets his man up, comes high, and then this player turns and shifts and then receives a back screen. So we go from down screen to back screen. Just a simple little play that will confuse the defense. You can slip off these screens, and it's very confusing for the defense. It can also work from the opposite angle, where this player recognizes that the player is high. He comes up here. We set a back screen. This player then cuts low, and then this player turns and sets a down screen, and this player cuts up. But the rescreen has been very effective for us. All the things we've talked about have been based on screening. Our offense is not just predicated on screening. Screening is one portion of it. Movement without the ball is a second portion of our offense. And anytime you see that you can cut to an open area where there could be a basket scored, do so. As long as another player doesn't cut to the same area. No two players can set to the same area. If a player would like to see that he can flash to up here to the high post when the ball is up here, do so if it's available and there's no one there. We could also come and cut across and then look to post. If a player sees that he can backdoor cut. All those things are acceptable within the offense. A player could pass the ball to a side, fake away, and then cut to the basket. Pass, and it's a give and go scenario. The one thing we don't want to do is use too much of the dribble. We don't want a player up here just dribbling, going nowhere. It's just not effective. We want to use the dribble in different ways. One way to use the dribble is to get a better passing lane. If I see a post up here, I could dribble over here so I can make a better pass to him. That's one way to use the dribble. Another is if you see a lane, you could dribble and attack the basket. There's not many other opportunities in this offense for you to utilize the dribble beyond trying to, one, get a better passing lane so you can pass the ball in safely, chest to chest, or attack the basket with one or two dribbles. This is more of a passing game motion offense, not a dribble attack, read and react offense. So it's more passing than dribbling. Another thing you could use the dribble is to really pull out and create more space so that we don't have a problem of crowdedness and want to keep that 15 to 18 foot spacing. The first offense we'll explain is the triangle offense. Why it's called the triangle is based on the spacing of the post players. And we want 3 post players to be in those spots. They form a triangle. And as they move, they will be interchangeable. The post players in this area have very specific responsibilities. But it's very important that they keep proper spacing at all times and continually talking to explain what they're doing so their teammates know how to react and respond. One thing that we want to emphasize is that we don't want these players to get too close to each other, and we want to keep 15 to 18 foot spacing at all times. That can bring a player outside the paint, which is important so we don't get a 3-second violation. Usually we start the offense with a player setting a down cross screen for an opposite player, with the ball possibly being in either hands of the 2 players that are out. When that player cuts, he's going to cut off the screen, and he's going to lead his man into the screen, principles that we have talked before. The ideal situation is for this high post player to set a screen on the man guarding the low post. If he can make contact with this player, that is the best scenario. However, sometimes they will have to set a roadblock screen, which is a screen that gets in the pathway of the defender, so when the offensive player cuts, the defender will run into that screen. So either of those 2 scenarios are acceptable. We are trying always to get the ball into the high post area. This is a very, very ideal situation to have the ball in with the high post because there is no help side when the ball is in the middle. This cutter has the opportunity to cut as high as he can shoot from. So if he cuts off this screen, he can come all the way out to the 3-point line if he is a shooting threat from that area. It's also an option to cut to the 3-point line if a switch occurs from the defense or your man is pressuring you so much that you cannot get the ball. Usually going to the 3-point line will end up getting you open and does not affect the offense in any way. The screener, where the other low post player will come and now screen the player that set the original screen. This player will then cut off and look for the ball. At this point in the offense, we are trying to seal, and that's a very important aspect of this offense, is for these post players to see if they can get inside positioning on either of their defensive players. If they can seal to the inside of the screen, that is a positive. Now let's talk about the inside seal. We have had now the initial screener come down and set this screen. And this cutter has cut high. Now he has come across and received a screen from this player. At this point, if I am the screener coming across, I will try to get inside this defensive player as this player cuts through and try to hold that position, putting my arm out and allowing this player to set up a high-low pass. This player that cut across, he could do the same thing.
he recognizes this man picks him up, he could then spin and try to seal inside position. Now we have a high-low situation for either side. It is important, though, that they do not stay in there too long, for they will get the 3-second violation. So they need to step out if they don't get that seal and create proper spacing once again. Once we've done the initial screen, the post players really have a lot of different options as far as what they can do, as long as they talk and keep spacing. We now have the ball here on this side. If the guard could easily pass in, he might have to dribble down to the baseline to make a chest-to-chest pass. But if the ball is on this side and the man is here on the post side, we want this screen to occur where he is screening away from the ball or up to the high post. And he could screen either one of those options. This would be a cross screen, back cross screen. This would be just a straight across cross screen. But he has the options to go away. We really do not want a screener to come here from this side and set a back screen, which would not be effective with the ball here. And we don't really want a screen coming here down to the player and this player cutting up with this positioning. After a while, we won't continually do the same thing to start the offense. A player could set a back screen from either side, from the low post or from the right or the left side. This is an effective way to vary the offense, and this player cuts low, and then this player will usually be open, which is an advantage. Timing is absolutely critical. As this player were to come down and set this screen on the other side of the floor and he cuts up, this player might cut too early and says before this screen is even set, and then the timing would be all off. So we'd really need to understand the communication is important, the spacing is important. We don't want two players ever to enter the same spot at the same time. A few notes to point out. These players should be always above the box of the key. We don't want them to get too low underneath the basket. Then their post moves are limited to going inside at all times. That is important. Also, the other area that we want to talk about is keeping our spacing and stepping out of the key to give room for the screens to be set. The other aspect of this is creativity. We want our players to look different as they execute throughout the different sequences that they play on offense. We don't want to do the same thing every time. So it's important that we are creative and always doing something new to make the defense adjust. Lastly, a lot of teams will play off you in this kind of setting and switch. So don't be afraid to take the 15-foot jump shot. As this player cuts off this screen, don't be afraid to turn and look. If this player is playing off you, look at the basket so at least you are an offensive threat. And if the shot's available to you and you're a good 15-foot jump shot shooter, shoot the ball. The same with the low post. If this player were to cut across and screen him and he flares out just a little bit more than the typical post play, we could high-low here to this spot if the ball is passed here and can turn for a jump shot for a 15-foot range. Do not be afraid to shoot the 15-foot jump shot if the defense is playing off you and clogging all of the lanes. But it's also imperative not to give up on those seals, because if they are clogging, you still can seal the inside player. Now, if the ball were to go into the high post, and let's say this screener action occurred, and there was nothing there, we really don't want the high post to pass the ball back where he received it.
It really doesn't shift the defense in any way. And we'd like to try to move the ball, if we could, to the other side of the floor. So the next pass would be to the opposite side of the floor on the other side. So if it comes from one side, try to pass it to the other. Also, if a high post throws the ball down to the low post, don't be afraid to cut and set a screen opposite the ball. Okay, you might get something out of this, and it's not expected in a lot of situations. As this player cuts the high post, this player can't get a shot off. He recognizes a pass back up to the high post, and there's something there. Maybe there's a mix-up on the switch, and there's a cut here to the basket where this player can hit here with the proper spacing. So what are the guards doing while the posts are in their motion? Well, the first thing that they could do is this player here with the ball could dribble down and try to feed the post if he's sealed one way or the other, preferably to the baseline side. He could just simply pass the ball into the post, and we've got an easy basket there. That is the easiest thing that they can do. Another thing that the player could do in the guard position, and again with proper spacing, is the guard player could pass the ball to the high post who's cut, and then just simply exchange with the other offensive player. We've got some motion here. Players are not being stagnant. The defense must move, but it is critical that these offensive players do not get too close to the high post, which might bring a defensive player to them. Another thing that we have done that's been very effective, especially for a player out here who is a shooter, is to set a side flare screen for this player. So if he were to pass the ball, and he being the shooter here, we would set a side flare screen for this player to cut off of, and then look for the three-point shot from the high post. That would be another option for them. One more option could be that the guard could cut through, and we would really overload this side here with the ball. We could feed him with the ball, get him to pass there for inside post position. Maybe that this player now on defense shifts and tries to front him or go to the inside, and we seal opposite. We pass here to the high post for a high-low seal. That seal can happen at any time. The importance on this one is that this player must recognize that they are the coverback man. We do not want them to then move to an area that would not allow them to be the first person back on defense. Because we have overloaded, if a ball was stolen, we would have to have someone back, and it's very important that this player doesn't go anywhere if the overload occurs. The next offense we could talk about is called Hornet. Simply put, we are just going to add more to the triangle offense and allow our guards now to interchange with our post players at any point that they want, giving us a totally different look. So while the offense is running with the post players doing their screens, so now the guards can receive screens from the post players and interchange with that player. If this player were to pass the ball over to the side, he could receive a back screen and then cut to the basket. Now he's a post player while this post player becomes a guard. Another option would be based on angles and spacing. This player could pop out some, and we could receive here a down screen, if the ball were in this position or even in this position, this player would cut out, cut back in, and receive the down screen for this player, and now we have a switch between the guard and the forward. If the defense team decides to switch on this, now we have a mismatch situation in two different places. So this is a very positive scenario. Another thing the guards could do is use a UCLA screen, which is what we call a screen where this high post player sets a screen from the opposite side of the ball. It's a cross screen. This player would pop out, recognizing that this player is cutting through and cutting to the basket. This would be a very effective screen. Another thing the guards could do is simply do a simple cut through using the post as a screen. So they could come through here and receive here what we would call a horizontal screen, and then the ball would be here. A pass would be made here for a jump shot. Then we could post up this player. If he doesn't receive it, he could screen up, he could screen away. Many different options that he would have from this player cutting through. Again, this player recognizing he is the coverback man. Another thing the guard could do is receive a flex screen. That screen would take place, let's say the ball were to be here or into the high post. This player as a guard would come around and flex cut here as this player popped out. Now we have a scenario where the guard is working off the forward screen. The last two plays that we've shown of the flex and horizontal screens, these players would not interchange or become post players if the guards made that cut. They would not change and become those type of post players. Once we've learned the offense, we could add a guard into the high post area or low post area and have them work with the post. Hopefully this would create some mismatches if they were switching some of the things that we were doing. What we would do then would be they would most likely try not to switch this play, but again the guard sets the screen, we screen the screener for the guard could come and step out. He could go all the way out to the three-point line, and we could simply pass to him. We could have the guard not in this position, put them in the low post area, and we could set a screen for him this way with the ball here, and he could cut up to the three-point line just for a simple three to start off with. If that's not there, again, this player sets a screen and goes through. There's something there, maybe not. This guard will look to screen one way or the other at one of the low posts, and the action starts to move. In this scenario, let's put the guard here up top. He sets the screen, cross screen, down screen here to this player. Then he, as the ball enters to the high post, he receives a cross screen from the other low post and cuts through. Nothing there. Now, if we are in Hornet, this player could set a screen. Now we've set this player here with two different screens, and the options are limitless as to what we can do. In this scenario, now the guard is replacing the post player and becoming a guard again instead of one of the post players. But there are so many opportunities to slip cut off of these screens. We found that a lot of times players will be set into a situation where there's a box and one on one of our good players. We like to put the guy that's being our best player or the player that they think they want to stop with the one guy on him. Let's put him in the high post here. And let's have him set some cross screens here. Either way on either side. And these players can flare out here. He will work to set this post screens. This is very effective against a scenario where a box and one is in place. We'll use him as a screener and put their defensive player inside the paint. We could also, if he was a post player, have this guard post. So if we know where they're going to be, and because he's going to be guarded fully by this player, he sets this screen. They're not going to switch on this. This player has plenty of opportunity to be open now. We cross screen here. He's now received 2 screens here from this side. Say we reverse the ball to the other side. He dribbles over. And if this player here is a post player, he could now be in a position as a guard to post up someone that's most likely a guard as well. A lot of times our guards will be pressured, and we want these guards to not have a lot of pressure on them if there's no reason to have pressure. If this guard recognizes that he's being pressured, he should easily pass the ball to someone that's not being pressured. We don't want to wear out a player at any point. And why have the ball pressured when it's unnecessary? But we'll also use what's called a release, where we've set this up perfectly for a player to come and flash from the high post area up. He might go make a fake down and then flash up, and now we have released the pressure on the guard. Now from there, we can still be within our offense. We don't have to necessarily start with the initial down screen. This player could come across and cross screen to start things. As these guards come through, they might be able to backdoor. They're coming down into position. If we're in again, Hornet, this player could come and set a down screen or receive a back screen. Again, we want to try to take pressure off the ball as much as possible. But the key is for this guy to come and release. If he's pressured on the release, and we always want the ball to be released here in the middle of the court, he might set the initial. As he sees this guy being pressured coming down the court, he might set a roadblock screen or a down screen for this player to come up and be the release. But we can't take a lot of time to do this. We need to set that screen quickly so we can take the pressure off our point guard so that there is no pressure. If we have a talented point guard, that might change. But for most case scenarios, we don't want to wear anyone out. Let's get the ball to where there is no pressure. Another thing that we want to talk about is what if they switch? And the first thing we want to do is make sure we really create a lot of space here, because we want room for our players to be able to cut off of this. And again, if they're switching off these screens, we have to be smart in what we're doing, because it's going to be easily defended and pressured, and we won't be able to get the ball into the high post or the low post if they're switching. So one cut that we can simply make at any time is that either player could backdoor cut or slip. So as this player, let's say the ball is here, and we set this screen here, and this player is, let's set it a little further, sets down. This player is supposed to go here, but let's say he cuts here and then backdoor cuts. Okay, now we've got a pass here that they weren't expecting from the switch. We've confused them on the switch. Conversely, this player who's setting the cross screen could simply just slip to the basket. But this player, again, has to step out if they're switching. So 2 good ways to really make this effective is to use a backdoor cut or a slip screen when they're switching. And we really have to have the correct spacing and talk to determine what we're going to be doing so there are no surprises when we make these cuts.